Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, you have Nora visiting Eobard in the future. Now, that's interesting because Eobard always seems like he knows what's going on. He's got this everything figured out. I was like, oh, I'm the only one who really knows how to do this whole time travel thing. But it does seem like things do go not the way he kind of plans it to, because now it seems like basically things have played out to the point that a new timeline is being created, and he doesn't know what that danger is that's coming, but it's something much worse. And I love that Nora comes back present day. It's like Barry and Iris, it's like, all right, we'll get the team started trying to find Cicada, and it's like, nope, Nora's already there, putting everyone to work, and everyone's kind of like, this is your fault. That's your kid bossing us around like that. I thought that was kind of pretty neat. Even Barry being like, wow, actually, this is pretty impressive. You got all this work done and stuff like that. But Amir's like, you know. So don't worry, we'll kind of take things from here. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat. But I love this aspect of it being like, okay, so Barry's got to try and convince Cicada to take the cure and everything like that. And, Nora's like, okay, what are you going to say, Dad? He's like, I thought about it a little bit, because for her it's like, she's like, this is going to be the speech of your career. This is the biggest hero moment of your career, convincing Cicada to take the cure willingly and stuff like that. And I thought it was so interesting because for Barry, it's like, yeah, I got some thoughts here and there, and everyone's like, it's really just some thoughts. And then like even Sherlock being like, oh, what are you going to do? Going to tell like the most bloodthirsty killer, stop? And then, like, you have Iris being like, well, look at Marlies. He was able to convince her. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, but he wasn't able to convince Savitar. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting little moment there. I even love that, like, Nora kind of tries to compile all these, like, obviously she's going through her notes, like, oh, look at all these different speeches where you've been able to kind of convince the bad guy to turn over a new leaf. But then Barry is like, yeah, but those circumstances were different in different regards, whether it be, like, the Leonard Snart situation or others. I just thought it was kind of him just being like, that situation is not going to work the same way, because Cicada doesn't care about kind of making it at the end of all of this, essentially saying, like, because for him, even if he dies, he doesn't care about himself. Like, all for him all that matters is the mission. That's all that has matter, and that's all that will ever matter. So it's like, how do you approach someone like that, essentially? So that was kind of interesting. I also love how Nora tried to spin everything, because it's like, oh yeah, there's this Acid Master, which I love. Cisco, wait, his name's really like Philip Masters, and so, but nevertheless, Nora kind of piecing it together, be like, oh yeah, like this is from the newspaper I saw in the future. And Sherlock's like, why did you say anything before? And she's like, future changing and all that. I didn't know if it was reliable. Obviously, there's different metahumans and stuff like that. I'm like, I guess, Eobard probably trained you to kind of be on the fly, but I mean, the thing is, Sherlock kind of keeps her a little off balance, because, don't know where to expect him to come at her like that, because she still doesn't know that Sherlock knows a lot more than she kind of doesn't realize how much he knows. But what's interesting is Barry's first attempt at the speech didn't work, because, like, for him, Barry was like, oh yeah, you don't want your legacy to be you as this serial killer. It's like, come on, take the cure and we can change everything. But for Dwyer, it's like, I don't care about some legacy. Even if I'm labeled as some killer, the fact of the matter is I'm still doing good in the long run. And I like what Joe was able to kind of convince him. It's kind of interesting, because in the back of my mind I was thinking, like, why not just force him to take the cure? I mean, to be fair, they still would have to get in close range of him and stuff like that. But I think it's because it would mean more. Because, like, if you didn't, find a different route to this situation, if they didn't give him the choice, it's like, well, for one, it's one side of things of being like, it's wrong for you to kind of force it upon him. It's like, is that what you're going to do to everyone who doesn't want to take the cure willingly? You're just going to force it upon them, no matter what the circumstances are. So I think there's that side of things. But I also think another thought I had was kind of like, because if you didn't get Orland's permission, like, if he wasn't okay with everything, he'd just be just as pissed off and as angry as a human, and he'd just still be an issue later on. He might not have his powers, but he might still try and kill other metahumans because of it, so. But it took Joe talking to him. It's like, yeah, that speech you gave was a good speech as the Flash, but maybe you should try to do it as Barry Allen, because when he looks at you as a Flash, all he sees is a reminder of everything he's hate, everything that he's lost, that being Gracie because of metahumans. He sees you and all your powers and everything. It's just a reminder of what he hates. It's interesting with all of that too, because obviously that kind of plays in contrast with the other rest of the episode in certain regards of like, because obviously there's a whole thing of like, oh yeah, Nora's like trying to, you know, make sure that they stop Cicada and everything, because for her she feels like this is the final day, this is her last chance to do it. And then when it comes down to it, like also at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, they're celebrating the fact is that, you know, XS has her own drink at the coffee place, and then Barry's like, oh, think about it soon, you know, action figures and all that stuff, and she's like, come on guys, stop, kind of getting all bashful and embarrassed about it. But I also love the fact is that there's a list that Iris has compiled of all the stuff they need to do as a family. But this whole situation, like, Iris kept trying to make a point to kind of get started on the list. It took a while before Nora kind of finally understood what Iris kept trying to like pull her away from work and everything like that, because for Iris, she didn't even think about it until now, but it's like now that they're so close to ending this, that means everything's going to basically end. And because it's like Nora will go back to her own time, and you know, because even Nora's like, Mom, it's not over. The fact of the matter is, you know, we're going to, you know, still be a family and everything. But for Iris, it's like the relationship they have now. For Nora, it's like she'll go back to her you know time, and it's like obviously the new timeline will be in place, and it's like, so for her it'll be like it's nothing, but for them it's like Iris is like, to get to where we are right now, it take me decades. And it's just like, you know, it's such an interesting conundrum to be in, because it's like, yes, of course you're going to have your daughter someday, sure, and you're going to have this relationship, but it's like you're just going to be waiting the entire time being like, oh, I wish I could talk to you and hang out with you like we did, Nora, but that was you from the future and everything. But I guess that's also a nice aspect to it too, because you know what's waiting ahead of you. It's nice, and to just think like, oh man, I can't wait till you get older, then we can do this together like we did when you were here from the future. You know, it's something funny to think about like that, but it's an interesting situation to be in as a parent. You know, it's just kind of like you've met your child as an adult and you want to spend more time with them as an adult, because this is the relationship they've already built up, and it's like, I don't want to just, you know, have to wait decades to get to this point. You know, it's like we already have this relationship, this bond now, and it's like I have to wait till then to kind of go through that. You know, it's like I said, just an interesting situation to find yourself in. But Nora kind of looks at it and goes, I was so focused on, you know, Cicada that I lost track of why I came back here in the first place, hitting up all those special moments like, you know, your wedding and whatnot, and the enlightenment. Is because it was all for you guys. I wanted to, you know, spend time with you guys so that I could be a part of these moments, so that when I go back to my time, I could have these memories with you guys. And it's like she felt like she kind of got sidetracked with her mission and kind of lost sight of the main reason she was there in the first place, and that was for Iris and Barry, you know. So I just thought that was kind of a neat little thing. And I think that also plays into the other side of the episode in that regard, you know, because Barry is trying to convince Orland, which I love that whole aspect to it too, the whole like Joe and Lucille, I said Lucille, I meant Cecile working together and everything. And it kind of catches him off guard, because he's used to kind of handling things, you know, being in his own lane, but like her being there, being able to like read people's minds kind of throws him off track a little bit when it comes to the whole Dr. Ambrose situation. And that was just for him mainly because it was like a pride situation, because it's like he's so used to being the one in that situation. But Barry's like, no, that's why you work together as a team. Like, you represent each other's strength. Like, you know, she's your strength, and she uses your strengths and you play into her strengths. It's like you complement each other, and then it's like let her doing what she's doing allows you to be better at what you're doing too. Like you help each other grow and play off each other's strengths like that. And you know, you complement each other. And I thought, like, I love Joe being like, wow, you're really good and damn good at these speeches, aren't you? And it's like, I learned from the best, you know, I had a good teacher. So I thought that's kind of a neat element, and seeing them kind of work together to tackle Ambrose. It's interesting too, we kind of finally find out, because obviously she had deep hate for metahumans, but now we know why. Basically during Zoom's invasion in season 2, when he had all those metahumans from Earth 2 attack, her fiance Darius ended up getting killed, so that's why she harbors so much hate for him. It had to be something personal like that. But what's also interesting too is the fact is, hey, Gracie's becoming a metahuman. I guess it took time, but the shard that's in her head is starting to, make her into one. And that's what Barry plays into the next time he talks to Orphan, because it's like, I'm not coming at you as the Flash, I'm coming at you as a father who'd do anything to make this city a safer place for my daughter. And it's like, I know you want to do the same thing too. Because for him, it's like, you don't want Gracie growing up in a world where you exist. Because, and that's why Ambrose didn't want to tell him. And that's sad, too, because she was all about him killing metahumans. But there was a part of her that was like, yeah, but there's a chance he might kill Gracie. But she's like, I would never do that. But the fact is they would even think that is kind of sad. But for him, it's like, I would never do that. And Barry is like, the fact is, she might grow up in a world where you're around killing all these metas and she might not feel safe anymore. So allow me to cure you and her. It's like them working together, even bringing them back to Star Labs. That was interesting. Even threatening, he's like, yeah, I'll kill every one of you if this doesn't work. So that's interesting. But luckily it seemed like everything did kind of go off without a hitch, so that was pretty neat, until the second cicada showed up. It's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yes, I knew it. Ever since Nora went inside of Gracie's head, I knew that was her. I guess that's what changed things in his timeline. Because that's the thing. Because it's like I guess maybe Orphan always continued killing, but that was always my thought process. That no, it wasn't always Orphan. That eventually Gracie took up the position as well. Which I'm assuming that's because that's what that situation is. That's Gracie, obviously from the future. So obviously she's around. So that must mean Orphan's not around. Either he got killed, or maybe his powers eventually took a toll on him and killed him. It's interesting too because her powers aren't the same as his. Well, because I was noticing, I was like, everyone can use their powers even though she's there, because she fights differently too, because she uses 2 daggers and she's boom 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 blocking every attacker away and slicing things, which is interesting. But it's also like she doesn't have the same her powers seem similar in certain regards, but she doesn't have the outright ability to block meta powers like he does, because everyone was still using their powers around her. So her powers, I guess, just work entirely differently than his. And maybe it's kind of like a mirror image, like his powers work a certain way and hers work another way. Maybe in some way the abilities kind of complement each other in certain regards. Either way. But ever since we went inside of Gracie's head with Nora, I kind of figured as much, especially with the whole thing of Gracie getting super pissed and everything and being like, she's so ramped up in everything of my Uncle Orphan, he's doing the right thing. You saw the adult version of her. I'm like, yeah, she took over for Orphan in the future. So, and I guess that's the reason why she came back in time, because I guess maybe he died in prison or something like that, and maybe Gracie was on her own. I don't know, because that's the thing. Did they not have the cure in the original timeline? What made this timeline different? I mean, obviously, we know one point that's making a difference. The fact is, Gracie's coming back in time and changing things, much like Nora. So the timeline's kind of getting even more wishy-washy, which is interesting, considering the thing is that this is all part of Eobard's plan, yet someone else is kind of doing that. It makes you wonder, do you think Eobard is playing both sides? Because like I said, it just seemed like, he was kind of concerned and everything, but who's to say while he's, raising and teaching Nora all of this stuff, who's to say he's not meeting with, Grace on the side and helping train her and tell her about everything? Because it's like, how else would she get back in time? I guess maybe there's enough. Because I feel like the only people around that be able to take you through time are speedsters, so I would assume it'd have to be like an Eobard situation. But he's locked up and everything, but I guess not unless it's a situation of, he can leave anytime he wants to. He just plays the fool and he's just kind of biding his time, essentially. I have no idea. It's going to definitely be interesting to find out, because like I said, what happened to Orphan to make Gracie kind of wake up? Because obviously that must mean they didn't get her the cure in time. I mean, to be fair, they would have to give her the cure now, and that would undo things, but they probably haven't pieced it together that Grace is that other cicada. So now it's kind of interesting, because obviously it was a battle between fathers before, and now you can see it most likely shifting into a battle between daughters, so it's just kind of interesting how that's going to end up playing out. I didn't kind of expect the story to kind of shift like that, but it makes sense considering the showdown in Grace's head that Nora and her had, so it's only befitting that the story potentially turns out, especially if they're both here fiddling with time. It's extra more befitting that things kind of play out in that regard. Like I said, ultimately we'll kind of have to wait and see where things kind of head in that direction. I'm also curious, like, because obviously, like, the translations that Sherlock have been working on are up to like 71%. So a little while longer, and he'll probably have deciphered her entire journal. And once that comes out, things are going to change in many different regards. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with all of that. It's kind of sad too, because she ended up killing, Gracie ended up killing Dr. Ambrose, but I guess it's because you took part in turning my uncle human again. You stopped him from doing the good work that he was doing, so you're an enemy, which is sad because everything she did was for your sake. But I guess for her, it's like, oh, you betrayed our family by turning on my uncle like that. Because she was such a little girl at the time, so obviously her world and everything, her perspective is very warped. She grew up with that warped perspective, and it's like, you've held on to that anger for, like, Orland's had that anger for a couple months. Gracie has had this anger for years, and for it to fester and manifest itself like this. So her anger probably won't nearly be as enough for like Barry or anyone to quell it, So we'll have to see what ends up happening. And what's she going to do now that her uncle is alive and everything? Like, she ended up getting his dagger. I wonder, like, will the power transfer over? Like, I mean, because she made the point to get the dagger of his, but it's like, that power was specifically his, and now that it's been shut down, like, the whole blocking human abilities is no longer viable for him. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what, Grace has planned, and what Team Flash is going to do against what she's got planned. It's kind of interesting because the threat that Eobard was like, oh yeah, I feel a threat, something or someone is coming. I thought it was going to be something else. I'll probably talk about it later. It's something I think I've referenced more for in the recordings. It's like a particular antagonist I feel like they've set up in this continuity in the Flash, but they just haven't done anything with. To anyone that might know comic books, it's like an enemy I think Season 3's finale set up that they just have not said or done anything with. So I don't know if that's going to be potentially something that we see further down in the line. But either way, that was just something random that's on the top of my head. I thought it was this particular enemy. It turns out not to be the case. It ends up being this whole second cicada situation. But like I said, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. To the next time, me, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.